Hey guys, welcome back to the First Methodist Shreveport podcast. We are here with Christa Pazzaglia, Executive Director of Hope Connections Ministry. How are you, Christa?
Oh, doing great.
Good. Glad you're here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We're excited. And so, can you tell us a little bit about your God story of how you got to be involved with Hope Connections and the Executive Director of Hope Connections?
Sure. First, we're not a ministry.
Okay.
And so I just want to be clear about that. We do a lot of governmental grant work, and so that's not a match.
Okay.
But so in 1993, when I was just 24 years old, I got sober.
Okay.
And I didn't have a steady place to live. I was sleeping around on people's couches and going here and there and doing whatever I had to. So I wasn't literally homeless, like on the streets, but I did not have a home.
Yeah.
And so I knew that that was related to what I wanted to do. And it would have been much easier for me to get sober at that time had I had a place to live. And I did get a place to live when I got out of treatment, and I went back to school and did a lot of different things. And I ended up running a program for people who were homeless, who are HIV positive.
Oh, wow.
And I fell in love with homelessness and with housing and with the right of people to have safe, affordable housing. And the program that I ran was funded by Hope Connections.
Oh, nice.
By the grant that I now write. It's a big HUD grant that funds 14 different programs that provide housing primarily.
Yeah.
And so when this job came available, I knew that I was passionate about HUD regulations, which is so nerdy, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
One of the first people I've ever heard say, I am passionate about homelessness and housing.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm so passionate about it.
Not to say it's not important, but it's just, those are two things I don't think many people in their daily lives spend a lot of time thinking about, but definitely important to the people who are affected by it, for sure.
Right, because housing is by definition, homelessness is being without a home. And so housing is the only solution to homelessness.
Yeah.
And so the two are interconnected in every single way. And so when I got this job, I've been at Hope 15 years. And when I started, we had two employees.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Goodness.
We were in the basement of the Highland Center. And so over the years, we've grown and changed. And now we have a building and almost two buildings on Levy Street between Linwood and Texas. And we're co-located with Christian Service, and they have the only soup kitchen in town. So people who are homeless can come to that location and eat and get services and everything they need at one site.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so was it a smooth transition going from, or can you tell us about a little bit more the transition from being in addiction yourself and then working in the area of helping people who were in a similar situation to you?
Well, I got out of school and I got a job at doing marketing.
Yeah.
And it was terrible. And not the place, but the job was wear a suit every day and go to luncheons and dinners, and I knew instantly that was not for me.
Yeah.
And that I needed to be with people like me. And people who live homeless are like me. They're the same as me.
Yeah.
They are me. And so when I got the job at running the Mercy Center, I felt so at home. And I felt like I was with people that I understood for the first time. And I understood some of what, even though every person experiencing homelessness has a different collection of issues and needs and problems, and it's very, very complex. Each person's story is very different. We've never had the same story twice. And so, even though that's the case, I did feel similarities with a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I still do. I still connect real deeply with clients and people who are experiencing homelessness.
That's great. So can you, just on homelessness, can you give us a little bit of the spectrum of how homelessness appears, like, or how it presents itself for different people, and how other people
Sure.
find themselves in a homeless situation?
Well, there are really two different kinds of homelessness. So a lot of times we hear people say, any of us are a certain number of paychecks away from being homeless. And I call that episodic homelessness, where you have an episode of homelessness. So even though for most of us that's not true, most of us have a support system where we could stay with some people, or we could pretty quickly get another job, or we know people who could help us.
Yeah.
And we have resources available. Even if we didn't have any money, we have things available to help us that could get us out of that situation pretty quickly. And even in poverty situations, when people sometimes have a situation with family where maybe they're doubled up and they have a family dispute and they have to move out, that's more quickly solved also. That family's not going to be homeless for very long, hopefully, and they're probably not going to get in that situation again. It's going to be a 1 or 2 time thing in their life.
Yeah.
Even if they're very near the poverty line. You know, we have a huge poverty rate in our community. I think 25%. I think that's close to being correct. I'm not exactly sure.
Wow.
And we have a less than 0.01% homeless rate, which tells you that poverty itself is not related to homelessness necessarily. And most people who live in poverty are extremely resilient and can make miracles happen for themselves. And I have watched that over the years in surprising and amazing ways. So homelessness that's chronic homelessness, or people that live unhoused, is how we refer to them, like outside.
Yeah.
And because that's what we think of when we think of homelessness. And those people have all kinds of different issues. They may have a chronic health condition that keeps them from working, and they don't know how to manage the system, or or have any family or have any resources to help them with that. They may have severe mental illness. They may have addiction issues. And addiction and mental health are very hard to separate, because a lot of people who are mentally ill self-medicate with drugs and alcohol. And so when we think of people living outside who are addicts, I hear that a lot. And, you know, when you do this work, you hear all kinds of things. People tell you whatever they think about it,
Yeah.
which is fascinating.
I'm sure it's
I enjoy
hard.
it, yeah.
Because you're in the situation where you know exactly what the situation is, and I'm sure a lot of people want to tell you their opinion of the situation.
They do, and it's interesting. I like, because I do a lot of research on the realities of things and best practices around the country and things that are working.
Yeah.
That we change things a lot to match new things that are working. So yes, people tell me often their opinions about things, which I love. It's entertaining, but you really can't separate mental illness from substance abuse, and we never know what came first, and so and we don't think too much differently about either one. So we don't try to separate it at Hope.
Yeah.
We take people as they are, whatever their circumstances are. A lot of times they have physical disabilities, just chronic health conditions are getting more and more prevalent that keep people from helping themselves. They don't feel good.
Yeah.
They're have chronic health conditions. I mean, chronic heart disease or blood pressure issues, or we've seen several people over the last year who have cancer. Who have no place to go, no family to stay with, and can't support themselves, and they just end up on the streets.
Really?
Yes.
Just out of a cancer diagnosis?
Yes.
Wow.
Well, out of illness, not necessarily the diagnosis, but once they're ill, they can no longer support themselves, and there's just nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And so they're. It's just so complicated, you can't simplify it. And people like to simplify things.
Yes.
They like things to be clear-cut and simple. And homelessness is one of the most complex things I can think of.
Yeah. And I never thought about that whenever someone is diagnosed with cancer, that maybe they're working at, Walmart as a part-time job or maybe even a full-time job. But if you get diagnosed with cancer and then the effects of cancer set in, like you're literally unable to do probably the things that come easy to us, but you're also unable to go and get treatment to get better. So you are left in that lurch of like, you just eventually degenerate and you can't go to work, so you can't support yourself. And then you can't go to the hospital because you can't afford it. And so you're kind of just left to...
Well, even if you can go to Ochsner and get health care through Medicaid or free health care even, they're not going to keep you to get chemo, and if you have no place to stay and you're sick, that's a terrible situation. And so that's especially difficult for all of us at our work, to see people who have chronic illnesses or things that are really dangerous.
Yeah, like no fault of their own. It just happened, and there's nothing.
Well, mental illness is no fault of your own.
Oh yeah.
Lack of support is no fault of your own, and sometimes substance abuse is no fault of your own. We like to blame people for substance abuse issues, but we also know it's genetic, and so everybody will say that, but then when somebody's an addict, they don't refer back to the genetic beginnings of that. And so in this similar way to mental health, substance abuse is an issue that can be solved. It just has to be addressed.
Yeah. So you have so many people who probably casually say, like in our walk of life, oh, I have an addictive personality. That's why I can't have candy after midnight because I've got an addictive personality, and I'll have like 12 packs of candy. But it's
true.
So like, they'll acknowledge that. But then whenever it comes to homelessness, there's a feeling of like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Well, and we all know people who are addicts who live in big houses and go to work every day and come to church and have families. And we all know people who have mental illness who, the same thing. They have houses and families and jobs and go to church and do all the things other people do. And some of them have been able to access medications and have the resources to make solutions for themselves.
Yeah.
So we know that those things alone don't cause homelessness. But homelessness does cause trauma, and it exacerbates any kind of issues that someone has. So if they have mental health issues or substance abuse issues, those things are going to get worse due to homelessness.
It definitely makes sense.
Yes.
And so we've talked about homelessness. And so what is Hope Connections in relation to homelessness?
So Hope Connections has two roles in the community.
Okay.
And our first role, which is the job I thought I was taking, was to oversee the homeless system. So we're the homeless coalition for this region, for Region 7, which is 7 parishes in Northwest Louisiana. And so we convene the agencies who provide services to people experiencing homelessness. And we have monthly homeless coalition meetings, and those are here at First Methodist. So that is a great thing that you all do for the community, is bring all of us together and enable us to have a place to convene and do planning and learning and networking and all those kind of things. So we write a HUD grant that funds 14 projects that mostly provide housing in the community, and that's going on right now, in fact.
Oh, wow.
And so that's every year, and and the other role we play is to provide the services that bring people into the homeless system. So we don't provide housing, permanent housing, but we provide street outreach services where we go out and find people who are homeless, living unhoused, living downtown, living under bridges, and bring them either to Hope to stay in our safe haven shelter, or to Salvation Army, or try to help them locate some family, or try to help them any way we can. And then we have the assessment program that assesses people. And the way the housing system works is that we put the most vulnerable person in housing first.
Okay.
So the person who has the most issues, we have an assessment and it gives people a score. And the person who has the highest score goes into housing first.
Okay.
And that's the person you would not want to house first because they have the most problems. And and this is difficult work. Housing someone who's been homeless, especially for a long time, is very, very difficult. And people need a lot of support. They need a lot of leeway. They need a lot of grace. And that's difficult work. Very, very difficult. And so when they leave us at Hope, the real work starts, which is what the housing providers provide. So Providence House and Volunteers of America and community support programs and Easter Seals and agencies like that, they do the real work, supporting someone who's in housing. So we just get somebody to them and get them, and then they start the long part.
Yeah, which I'm sure is difficult for the person who is going from being homeless, trying to integrate back into, what we consider the norm of being
extremely
housed.
difficult.
Because I'm sure there's a whole different lifestyle outside of being housed.
Absolutely. And so we're building right now a safe haven, the Solid Ground Safe Haven. And what a safe haven is a low restrictions shelter. And so by low restrictions, I mean you don't have to be sober to move in there. You don't have to be mental health medication compliant. You don't need an ID. You can have any kind of criminal background. There are just very few restrictions. And we do actually take in people who are ill, who need to sleep a lot from treatments or other health conditions. And, other shelters are unable to have those luxuries because they have families, or for some other reasons, they're not able to provide that open, non-judgmental way of sheltering people. And we're sheltering 20 people right now, but the new shelter will shelter 37.
Oh, wow.
And it'll be open probably the 1st of October. And we're really excited about that, to be able to help twice as many people.
Yeah. And I know that just talking with Michelle, that aspect of, I guess, restrictions as far as being in a shelter for homeless people is a barrier because, like you said, there is addiction and there's mental illness, and
Yes.
sometimes, like you said, the two go together. And so getting into a shelter is difficult for these people sometimes because they aren't able
Can't
or aren't in
meet
a
the
place to get clean.
restrictions.
Yeah.
Additionally, you have to have an ID. So what First Methodist does for Hope is provide the ability for us to get people IDs, birth certificates, any kind of paperwork that they need to obtain housing. We're able to do that through a grant from First Methodist.
That's great.
It's the first thing someone needs to create a path to the next thing. And you all are opening the door for them to be able to do the very next step.
Yeah. That's awesome.
It
Thank you,
really
First
is.
Methodist.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, good. Because I'm sure, like, when you're in a homeless situation, keeping your driver's license or something on you isn't top of mind for things you need to do.
No, and then we scan them in. So then if somebody loses their ID, we have a copy of it. So, and they can get that. We all use the same system, Homeless Management Information System, which Hope oversees. And so any agency can pull that ID off the system.
Nice.
And, see that that person does have an ID and that here it is. And yeah.
Good.
So it enables them a better access to services.
Yeah. Good. And so what would the process look like for someone who, you said there are different ways that people come to y'all, like outreach from people
Yeah.
walking on around downtown, or do y'all have people who just come up to Hope Connections looking for help?
Absolutely. People walk in our door all the time looking for help. And the very first thing we do is verify homelessness. A lot of times people think that we have solutions that we're unable to offer because we have to meet HUD guidelines and certain policies. And so we have to verify homelessness for every person. And that doesn't take a long time, but and then we start the next process, which is, can they stay at Salvation Army? If they can, that's where we want them to go. If they can't, they can stay with us if we have a bed.
Yeah.
And then there are other places too. If it's a family, they can go to Providence House's emergency shelter, and there are other options. And so we try to figure that out first, and then we get them on the housing list and see what kind of housing we can work out for them as quickly as possible. What's the solution?
Yeah. And so for those people who are walking around downtown, like, I guess, looking for homeless people, like, what is that? Have you ever done that?
Oh, yeah. Everybody loves to do. Everybody at our place loves to go on street outreach.
So what's that like?
Oh, it's so amazing.
Yeah.
So we have a truck, and we go out and find we have a lot of rural areas. Even around Shreveport, there's a lot of wooded areas, and so most people who are living unhoused are sleeping in wooded areas and camps. And so we have a map, on an internet map of camps where people are staying and who all is at that camp, and everything's electronic now, which is fancy. And so it's easy to keep up with people and locate them. And we kind of wait and get to know them and make relationships. And as soon as they're ready to do the next thing, we can do everything we can do at Hope in the field.
Oh, nice.
So that entire assessment process can be done in the field if that person won't come in.
Nice.
Sometimes people with severe mental illness are unable to be in a building with 50 people. And that's why they're in the woods.
Yeah.
And so they need the luxury of us, not luxury, they need us to accommodate their needs by doing what we need to do there.
And so what does that process look like? Is it usually building a relationship first, or?
It just depends on the person. Some people are ready that day to figure stuff out, and some people don't trust anyone, have been told no all their lives, and are ready for us to say no. and we're ready to say yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just depends on the situation. We try to be flexible and meet their needs. It's about them.
Yeah.
It's not about us.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's about what they need from us. There's a lady who lived outside for many years right behind this building, and we tried to talk to her for many years about different things, and she wouldn't. And she's living in our safe haven now.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so, it just takes time and trust and talking to somebody, meeting them where they are.
Yeah.
Without expectation of change.
Yeah.
We shouldn't expect them to change. We should meet them where they are. They will change naturally as things happen. And miraculously, when people get into housing, they automatically lower their drug and alcohol use and become more open to seeking mental health medications.
Huh.
And they're safe.
Yeah.
They have a door that locks. They have a bed to sleep in.
Mm-hmm.
And sleep is so important. And sleep is related to mental illness. The doctors who do sleep medicine are many times psychiatrists, and they're always related to psychiatry.
Huh.
And so it's linked in such a clinical way.
Mm-hmm.
And so people who live outside don't sleep very well. They're always looking over their shoulder. People who are living unhoused very rarely interact or hurt or steal from people who are not homeless, but they do steal from each other and hurt each other. And so it's a dangerous life.
Yeah.
Among themselves.
Yes.
Not they don't pose a danger to the public, regardless of what the view is.
Mm-hmm. I feel like that is the misconception. But so you're saying that it's mostly the ability to feel safe and to be able to rest that allows people to kind of put together a plan for their life. Like they're more open to changing.
They're working with a case manager too.
Yeah. Okay.
And we work with people at the safe haven to try to get into services prior to going into housing. I mean, they're there.
Yeah.
They're waiting. So why not start to work on that? And we work on activities of daily living that they may have lost track of, like cleaning or daily bathing or things like that you can't do while you're living outside.
Yeah.
You've got nothing to clean, which is why we beg people not to give out clothes outside, or they don't have a closet. So when somebody sets up shop downtown and gives out clothes to people experiencing homelessness, that's going in the woods in a pile.
Yeah.
And somebody has to clean that up when that person moves, and that would be us.
Is it more, do you feel like that's more facilitating the situation? Like whenever someone, like, I don't want to say enabling, but like giving out clothes downtown is almost kind of like, what do you say? It's the same as giving out money, where you're kind of just enabling them to keep being in that situation, or?
I think people want to feel good, and they want to feel like they're doing something good. And sometimes they don't realize that it's the wrong thing that they're doing. And it's not done with malice or with ill intent at all. They're doing something they think is good.
Yeah.
And in theory it is, but there are issues related to it.
Yeah. I'm not saying that giving money to homeless people is the wrong thing.
It is the wrong thing.
Okay. All right. Well, glad to clear
it's definitely
that
the
up.
wrong thing. Do not ever give a panhandler money.
Okay.
For one thing, 60 or 70% of panhandlers are not homeless.
Oh, really?
It's a job, and people dress up for that job just like a nurse does. And they make a lot of money,
Yeah.
probably more than I do. And And it although it's a strenuous job, standing outside all day,
Mm-hmm.
they do really well. And sometimes they're running other people who are not homeless to do the same, and they have people under them. It's like a business. And
Yeah.
so we beg people not to give money to panhandlers.
You say that, and yesterday, I kid you not, coming off of 3132 going home, there's the raceway after the exit to get onto Burt Coons. I never noticed that there was a trail before, but I was pulling up to this
Yeah.
stoplight, and then this guy comes out from the bayou on a bike, crosses the street, and there's always a panhandler on the left side who has a sign. He's been there every day, and we're filming this in August, and it's like our record heat time, and so these guys have
Right.
consistently been there. But anyway, yesterday, for the first time, I see this guy come out on a bike and just like kind of drive across, and I noticed there was like a well-worn path there, and then comes and talks to his friend. They change hands, and he gets on his bike and just goes down the street.
Right.
And so obviously, if I outed this guy, I'm sorry, but I didn't know, or from what you said, it sounds like a little bit of that situation where like there might be, they have it figured out.
You never know, but they
Yeah.
have. It's definitely not. It's definitely not what you think it is.
Mm.
And most people who are unhoused are exhausted and don't feel well and
Yeah.
have, like we already talked about, sleeping. They haven't slept, and so the energy it would take to stand outside all day and collect money is probably not going to happen, especially in this heat.
Yeah.
It's there's just that's a lot to ask of someone who's been up all night.
Mm-hmm. Good.
And not only that, but it's against the law in Shreveport. And so if you give money to a panhandler, you're contributing to them breaking the law.
Yeesh.
So I think people don't realize that. But
So should people be, I guess, encouraged to like call authorities if you see someone panhandling? Or,
no,
okay.
I wouldn't say that. I mean,
Okay.
I just say that no, thank you,
Yeah.
which is an odd response, and it's unexpected, so they don't know what to say. So
No, thank
it
you.
shuts it down. I just say no, thank you, and I look them right in the eye because it's a human being, and
Yeah.
you want to acknowledge their presence and acknowledge them as another person, no matter what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I do that respectfully, but I also respectfully say no, thank you. I'm not going to participate in that.
Mm-hmm. And I know Michelle here at First Report has told us that, we have a little red card that she gives us.
Yeah.
And instead of giving them money, say, we give money to our church that gives money to these people to help you in whatever way you need. And so
Yes.
here's how you can do this.
Yes.
And,
And we have cards called hand up cards.
okay.
And people and First Methodist used to give them out, but you can give the person a hand up card, and it tells you where to go to Hope to get services, and that Christian service is there, and those kind of things.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people will turn around and see that person throw the card down, which is very educational for the giver, because then they realize that person doesn't want help. They just wanted the money.
Have y'all had people come to Hope Connections from those cards, or?
Oh yeah,
That's
we have. Yeah, we do get. Yes, but the homeless community has a very great communication system, and so news gets out easily of when, what people offer and when and how to get it and those kind of things.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like it's hard sometimes for people to leave homelessness because, like you said, there is a community? So, like the same way we have friends, like, do you want to get out of homelessness and leave?
Well, I'll tell you this. This is always one of my biggest concerns when people move into housing. It's quiet. It's silent. People have no radio. They have no TV. When I go home, I turn on my TV. I live alone, and I turn on my TV. And I'm not watching it, but it's on.
Yeah.
And it's noise. And I think going from outdoors, and especially from the safe haven where all these people are living and it's noisy and there are people always around to talk to. It's dead silent inside those apartments. And we always talk about doing TV and radio drives, a clock radio even. I bought a client a clock radio not long ago who had just moved into housing, and he said the very thing that's my biggest fear. He said, it's quiet. He said, I can't stand it.
Yeesh.
And so I went and got him a clock radio, and he was so grateful because it's just, he said, I can at least listen to something.
Yeah. And that helps?
Yes. I think being in the dead quiet when you're used to being around a lot of other people, or even outside, it's noisy outside. And so I think that's a harsh reality.
Yeah. And so for homelessness in Shreveport, do you have a perspective on like where it's going, or if it's getting better or worse, or?
It's been getting better since in 2014 we switched the system to the new system that prioritizes the people that are the most in need. We used to use the college model, which was the person we thought was going to succeed. And the truth is those people will succeed on their own. They don't need us. And so the people that need us most are the people least likely to succeed, the most vulnerable. And so since we did that, homelessness has gone down by 1/2. And this year, we do a point-in-time count every January, the last week of January. And we count everybody who's outside, unsheltered, and in shelter for a week. And we do it based on where they were Monday night. So even if it's on Wednesday, we ask, where did you sleep Monday night? Because we can't find everybody. It takes a week to find everybody.
Yeah.
Or as many people as possible. And so this past January, we counted 66 people, which is way down from the year before.
Whoa.
And
What was it the year before?
I think it was 90, but there was also a snowstorm, and sometimes there are circumstances that cause the number to go up or down, but this year was normal, and so we feel like that number was pretty accurate.
Yeah. I don't know, it seems lower than I would have thought.
Doesn't that seem doable, that we would be
Yes.
able to get 66 people into housing?
Yes.
I think it's doable. And I think we should all be thinking, 66 people?
Yeah.
Yes, we can do that. We can get 66 people into housing.
Yes.
And when we open the safe haven, we'll have 37 of those people in safe haven where we can help them access more housing. And so we're really excited.
That's great. And so, like you said, with Safe Haven, we'll potentially offer more help to those people who are, people would say, like the least likely to succeed.
Absolutely, yes.
That's great.
Yeah, it is. We can't wait.
And so when you see cities like Austin or, other bigger cities that have like a bigger homeless population, what do you think separates Shreveport, who only has 60 and seems to be managing it really well, from like in Austin or like bigger cities?
Well, a few things. Our size, of course, is more manageable, and one of the things that is more manageable about our size is that we can all work together better. So we all know each other. All the nonprofits work together and know each other, and we have relationships at other agencies that we have relationships with people at almost every agency. We can call somebody almost anywhere, and somebody we know.
Yeah.
And that's what's great about the Homeless Coalition meetings, is that everybody's getting connected and meeting each other and trading phone numbers and who does what and getting educated.
Yeah. Because it has been a fascinating thing, just learning from how First Methodist helps the different aspects of our community here in Shreveport.
Yes.
Like there is a network of people who, like you said, all know each other and are all on this same mission together. And it's very inspiring and makes me feel proud of this church for sure. That,
Oh my gosh, yes.
Mhm.
First Methodist does so much in this community. It's amazing.
And so is Shreveport kind of an outlier in the sense that there is such like a network that is so weaved together to aid in homelessness compared to like the bigger cities?
I don't know if it's an outlier, but we are lucky in the size we are and the relationships we have. And I think we are Southerners, and so we are more likely to connect with other people.
Yeah.
Which is nice. And so I don't know if we're an outlier or not, but I'm glad I'm not managing the homeless system in Austin. I can tell you that.
I'm sure, I don't know, you might get headhunted from those people, how well y'all have done here.
No, I don't. Knowing how hard it was to get the homeless system together here and for that to be so interconnected, there's no way I would be willing to do that.
Well, we're glad to have you for sure. I know the city of Shreveport is glad to have you.
Well, thank you. And recently, First Methodist helped us purchase all the beds and mattresses for the new safe haven.
Oh, wow.
So
All
we
right.
ordered those today.
Good deal. All Sertas?
No, I'm afraid not.
Oh, goodness. Well, maybe one day. Maybe we'll upgrade to that soon.
Maybe so. But this church is very generous, and we're grateful. And we work with the other people that you all give money to. You know, the Hub does a lot of work with people who are new in housing and need help. When people are new in housing, they need help still. They need they don't have the things that everybody else has as far as household items and food and clothing and all those essentials that you think of.
Yes.
You know, we just run to Target and get some toilet paper and Windex, and that's not a thing. So, they help a lot of people do a lot of things that are needed when they're new in housing.
Yeah.
And Hope House does a lot of work with people who are homeless, and we all work together.
That's great.
Yeah.
So do you have any like testimonies of folks you have seen go from like homeless to housed and potentially living on their own?
Oh, there are a million stories of that.
Well, good.
That's the goal. So
Yeah.
when people move, we call housing with case management permanent supportive housing. Supportive meaning there's case management and support. And a lot of times people do need that support at first, and they outgrow it. And they can move on to live on their own, and that's the goal.
Yeah.
And there are people who will need support the rest of their lives, but there are many more people who don't. And so the goal is for them to become as independent as possible, to live the most independent life they can. That's what we all want.
Yeah.
We all want to do what we feel is best for us, and to make the choices we want to make for ourselves.
Yeah.
But mostly we just want to be heard. And that's what we try to do at Hope. We try to listen
Yeah.
and be curious and to let a person tell us their story and how they got there and where they are right now. And what can we do? What do you want us to do?
Yeah.
Not us telling them what we're going to do. They want to be heard.
Yeah. I'm sure it's got to be interesting to hear those stories when you're in like those outreach situations, going into the wooded areas and.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. That, like I said, that's by far the most popular thing at Hope, and all the employees like to go on street outreach. Not in this weather.
No. Oh,
But in the
goodness.
fall and the spring,
Yeah.
everybody wants to go on street outreach at least a few times.
Are y'all or do you ever meet people who are just content to be outside, or?
people say that,
Yeah.
and people will say, "Oh, I'm living out here because I want to." But when it comes down to it, and we get to know them better, and they learn to trust us, we very rarely have had someone turn down the opportunity for housing. Now, they may not want to stay in the safe haven or or a shelter, or they may not be able to. But if we can work with them to get a housing opportunity, it's very, very rare for a person to turn that down.
That's good. I mean, that's just another one of those things, like, people who have opinions have said things like
That people choose homelessness, and we. I used to say that's never true, but nothing's never, and so I would say it's almost never true.
Yeah.
And we all say things like that, though. I say, my mother constantly comments on my weight, and I'll say, my weight does not bother me. And and it does.
Yeah.
And so, I'm telling her, that doesn't bother me. You're not bothering me when you say that. And so, of course, we justify our situations sometimes. And especially when you're in a vulnerable situation that seems demeaning, such as homelessness, you would want to justify that as that being your choice.
Yeah.
And I think for the most part, that's what that is.
Do y'all ever have, this is just a personal question that was on my mind, do y'all ever have people who are like from a correctional facility or come out of prison and fall into homelessness because of the lack of, I guess, an on-ramp back into society?
Because of many things, job opportunities, housing opportunities. It's really hard to get a job or a lease with a felony conviction on your record. And that's a bad situation. In fact, we have an employee who has a felony on their record, and they have had a very difficult time getting housing, even though that person is super motivated, one of our best workers.
Yeah.
And has worked for Hope for 3 years and grown up through the ranks to management. That person can afford an apartment and can't get one.
Really? Just because of the
felony conviction. So that's a bad situation. And I feel like we need to figure out some solutions to that. That if the person serves their time, should that be a lifelong sentencing?
Yes. A
for
mark to
housing
carry.
and employment.
Yeah. Oh, that is tough because, and the only reason I ask that is because my wife and I have gone on trips to Angola and, have gotten to know some of the people in prison ministry, and the on-ramp back into society is very tough for those guys and women. And it's just
very tough.
One of those things where you hate it for them because you get to know them while they're in prison, and they are, like you said, extremely motivated. They want to, they have changed, and some of them have rehabilitated, and they're wanting to get out and contribute.
Some of them get out with a college degree.
Yeah, exactly.
And are ready to work and motivated, and then you get out and you can't get a job, even though you're more skilled than some other people that are applying for jobs. And that it's a bad situation.
It is, and it's just, I don't have the answers. I just didn't know if you had.
I don't either. No, I don't have an answer to that. But we do try to help people, and Goodwill Industries does a lot of work with reentry, which is what they call that. Those services are called reentry services.
Okay.
And so a lot of what Goodwill Industries does has to do with that. And people always say, I don't want to take my clothes to Goodwill because they're just going to sell it. Yes, they are going to sell it, and they're going to use that money to provide programs for people who are reentering or to high schoolers who need help moving on to the next thing, or they help all kinds of people reenter the job market.
Yes.
So what they do is vitally important. I take my stuff to Goodwill.
That's a great thing to hear, because I was, I heard that for a few times and have not taken things to Goodwill for that reason because
Oh, they do
people
all
have said,
kinds of work, and they
Okay.
need that money to do that work.
Because I know there was that, at least for me, that perception of like, oh, it's just another form of like capitalism kind of gone amok.
No.
And, okay.
No, they do amazing work. And
Yeah.
they'll come to Hope and do resumes and help people apply for jobs. And they have job listings for people with felonies. And they have resources and even housing resources. So they do great work.
Well, good. That's great to hear.
Yeah.
And so I know we've talked about a lot of ways that First Methodist has impacted Hope Connections. Are there any other ways that First Methodist has like directly helped or is helping Hope Connections?
Yes, we've been able to speak to lots of Sunday school classes here and share, what we know and try to educate people in different ways. And we always love the opportunity to do that. And, we always need donations, though. We're opening this safe haven pretty quickly. They've now poured the driveway, and the air conditioning and lights are on in there. And
wow.
we're getting the beds in, as I said, and we're just about ready to roll. And so we need laundry detergent and, twin XL sheets and blankets and things for the safe haven.
Okay. Nice.
To outfit it, yeah. Deodorant, razors, all kinds of things. Coffee is a huge expense for us because we're the first place that has coffee. We're the first place open that has coffee.
Really?
And so it's a huge expense for us, and we have to stop serving it at 1 because we can't afford to serve it all day. But we all take our cup of coffee in the morning for granted. But if you had to wait for other people to get a cup of coffee, for 20 other people to get a cup of coffee, and if we ran out, that's a problem.
So how do y'all make that much coffee? Is it just like a few different pots, or?
Oh yeah, we constantly are making a pot of coffee. Yeah, I think that's a running thing in the mornings. Yes.
Well, that's great that y'all do that because, it's just one of those things that seem to help a lot of people is just having that one cup of coffee in the morning.
It's for some of us, it's just a sign of the morning. And if a Sunday school class wanted to do a coffee collection or laundry detergent collection, that's the kind of thing we love.
Yeah.
And that makes things so much easier for us and more affordable and makes life doable for the clients.
Yeah. Do they have a preference, the people y'all serve, the Folgers, or?
We don't care.
No. They're not a Maxwell house.
No, we just take what we get. Sam's brand.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, good to know.
Yeah.
And so I guess we've gone over a little bit of, if people want to volunteer with Hope Connections, is that something that y'all accept, or?
We do. We have a rough crowd, so it is not volunteering at other places. We have a rough crowd, and it's a little scary. But one of the things we love is when groups come and do a project.
Okay.
So we always need projects. And like if youth want to do a project together, or different groups in the church wanted to do something together, we love that. And we always need those kind of things done.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, this has been great, Christa.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was great to talk.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. And guys, we will see y'all next time.